He ignored his mother for years, then her final letter arrived. The envelope sat on Daniel's kitchen counter for 3 days before he opened it. It wasn't that he didn't notice it. He noticed it every morning when he poured his coffee, every evening when he dropped his keys. He'd pick it up, turn it over in his hands, feel the slight weight of it, heavier than it should have been for a single letter, and then set it back down. His name was written on the front in his mother's handwriting. Shaky now, the letters uneven, the D in Daniel trailing off like she'd lost her breath halfway through. But still hers. Still that careful cursive she'd learned in Catholic school in 1962 and never abandoned. He told himself he was busy. He had a presentation on Thursday. The apartment needed cleaning. He wasn't ready. The truth was simpler and uglier, he was afraid. The last time Daniel had spoken to his mother was 2 years, 4 months, and 11 days ago. He knew this not because he'd counted, he hadn't, he told himself, but because it had been the day after his 38th birthday, and he hadn't forgotten. She'd called to wish him happy birthday a day late. She always called a day late. His whole life, she'd been a day late, for school plays, for graduations, for the small moments that accumulated into a childhood. She'd had reasons. Work. His stepfather Gerald. Migraines. The car. There was always something. On the phone that last evening, she'd asked how he was. He'd said fine. She'd mentioned Gerald was having knee surgery. He'd said he was sorry to hear that. She'd paused and then said, in that careful voice she used when she was trying not to start something, "You know, Daniel, I was thinking you might come visit this summer. It's been almost 2 years." And something in him, something old and tired and still somehow raw, had simply snapped. "Mom," he'd said, "I spent my whole childhood waiting for you to show up. I'm done waiting." The silence on the line had lasted 4 seconds. He'd counted those. "I see," she'd said finally. "I don't think you do. Daniel. I have to go." And he'd hung up. He'd felt, in that first moment, something close to relief. Like setting down a suitcase you'd been carrying so long you'd forgotten it was heavy. He'd made a boundary. He'd been honest. He'd chosen himself. The relief lasted about 6 hours. After that it was just the silence, and the silence was enormous. He'd heard from his Aunt Patrice, his mother's younger sister, 6 weeks ago. A text, which was unusual. Patrice was a phone call woman. "Danny, your mom is in the hospital. It's serious. She's been asking for you, **. He'd stared at the text for a long time. Then he typed back, "*What hospital? What's wrong, **. St. Catherine's. Her heart. Danny, please come, **. He hadn't gone. He'd told himself he needed time to think. He'd told himself he didn't know what to say. He'd told himself that showing up now, after everything, would be, what? Confusing. Hypocritical. Too little, too late. He'd told himself a lot of things in those weeks. Then the letter arrived. Patrice had called the same day, her voice careful in the way voices get when they're carrying something that can't be put down gently. His mother had passed on a Tuesday morning. Quietly, she said, as if that were a comfort. In her sleep. She'd written the letter 3 weeks before, during a brief stretch when she was strong enough to sit up. She'd given it to Patrice to mail. She'd made Patrice promise to wait until, Patrice paused here, until it was time. "She didn't want you to feel like you had to respond," Patrice said. "She just wanted you to have it." On the 3rd evening, Daniel poured a glass of whiskey he didn't particularly want, sat down at his kitchen table, and opened the envelope. Inside were 2 things, a letter, 4 pages on her pale blue stationery, and a photograph. He looked at the photograph first. It was him. Maybe 7 years old, maybe 8. He was sitting on the front steps of their old house on Carver Street, holding an ice cream cone, laughing at something off camera. He was missing his 2 front teeth. His hair was sticking up on one side in a way that no amount of water had ever fully fixed. He didn't remember the photograph being taken. He didn't remember that particular day. But he remembered that house, those steps, the way the concrete was cracked down the middle and how he used to try to ride his bike over the crack without slowing down. He set the photograph on the table where he could see it and unfolded the letter. Dear Daniel. I've started this letter 4 times now and thrown away every version. I kept trying to explain myself and it kept coming out like excuses. I don't want to give you more excuses. You've had enough of those to last a lifetime, and most of them came from me, so I'm going to try something different. I'm going to just tell you the truth, as plainly as I can, and I'm going to trust that you're the person I always believed you were, someone who can hold complicated things, Here is the truth, I was not a good mother to you when you were small. I know that. I think I knew it even then, in the moments I was failing you, but knowing a thing and changing it are very different, and I was too young and too lost and too married to the wrong man to find the distance between them, Your father left when you were 3. You probably don't remember much of that. I remember all of it. I remember thinking I would be fine, that we would be fine, and then the months passed and I discovered that fine was harder than I'd expected when you were 26 with a toddler and no degree and rent due on the first, I made choices I'm not proud of. Gerald was one of them. I told myself he was stable, that stability was what you needed, and both of those things were true and neither of them was the real reason. The real reason was that I was frightened and he was there. I know what he was like with you. I told myself it wasn't that bad. I was wrong, and I am sorry, I'm sorry for the school play in 4th grade. I know you remember it. You looked for me in the audience for the whole first act and I saw your face when you realized I wasn't there. I got there during the curtain call. I've carried that face with me for 30 years, I'm sorry for your graduation. I'm sorry for Christmas 2003. I'm sorry for the times I took his side when I should have taken yours. I'm sorry for calling a day late, year after year, as if a day didn't matter, Here is something else that is true, I love you. I have loved you since before you were born, when you were just a possibility, just a hope I hadn't let myself say out loud yet. I'm not saying this to undo what I did or didn't do. Love isn't an eraser. I know that. I just want you to know that it was always there, even in the years I showed it so badly you couldn't see it, I used to watch you when you were little, sleeping, playing, doing nothing in particular, and I would think, that is the best thing I ever made. The truest thing. And then life would get noisy and difficult and I would lose the thread of that, and you would wait, and I would show up late or not at all, and the thread would get thinner, I'm not asking you to forgive me. That's yours to keep or let go of as you need, and I won't put conditions on any of it. Forgiveness is for you, not for me. I've made my peace in other ways, or tried to, What I'm asking, the only thing I'm asking, is that you don't let what I failed to give you become what you failed to give yourself. I was afraid my whole life, Daniel. Afraid of not being enough, and so I made myself smaller, and being smaller made me less able to give you what you needed, and the guilt of that made me smaller still. It's a very efficient trap, You are not me. I want you to know that. You are kinder than I was, and you have always been braver, even when you didn't know it. The fact that you told me the truth on the phone, that you said, finally, out loud, what I had failed to say to myself for 60 years, that wasn't cruelty. That was the kind of honesty I never managed, I wasn't angry. I want you to know that too. I was sad, and then I thought about it, and I understood, and then I was sad in a different way, not for me, but for the years we didn't have, There is a photograph in this envelope. You were 7. We'd gone to the Dairy Queen on Route 9 and you got a chocolate cone and you were laughing because the sprinkles kept falling off and you thought that was the funniest thing in the world. I don't know why I kept that photograph all these years. I think because you look so happy. I think because for a moment everything was simple and we were just a mother and her son in a parking lot with ice cream, and that was enough, I want you to know there were moments like that. I want you to remember that it wasn't only the hard things, Take care of yourself, Daniel. Eat regular meals. You always forgot to eat when you were worried about something. Let people in. You were always so careful about that, and I understand why, but the walls we build to keep the hurt out also keep other things out, I love you. I am proud of you. I should have said that more, All my love, always. Mom. Daniel read the letter twice. The second time, he didn't make it past the fourth paragraph before his face was in his hands. He cried the way men who don't usually cry tend to cry when they finally start, suddenly and completely, without dignity, with the kind of heaving, gasping grief that feels almost violent, like something tearing loose from somewhere deep. He cried for his mother, and he cried for the 7-year-old in the photograph, and he cried for every school play and late phone call and Christmas 2003, whatever had happened at Christmas 2003, and he cried for the last 2 years and for the conversation that ended them and for the fact that she had understood and hadn't been angry and he would never get to hear her say so out loud. He cried until he was empty. Then he sat in the quiet of his kitchen for a long time, the letter spread open on the table in front of him, the photograph of the laughing 7-year-old next to it. Outside, the city was doing what cities do in the evening, ambulances and laughter and someone somewhere playing music too loud. Life, going on. He picked up the photograph again. He didn't remember that day. He didn't remember the Dairy Queen on Route 9 or the sprinkles falling off the cone. But he looked at that kid, gap-toothed, squinting in the sun, laughing at something so small it didn't even have a name, and something in him recognized him. I want you to know there were moments like that. There had been. He knew that, even if the hard years had made it easier to forget. There had been Saturday mornings with cartoons and her good pancakes. There had been the time he'd had a nightmare and she'd sat on the edge of his bed and made up a story about a dragon who was afraid of butterflies until he fell back asleep. There had been, somewhere on Route 9, a parking lot and a chocolate cone and sprinkles falling and the two of them laughing together. It wasn't enough. It wasn't what he should have had. But it had been real. He called Patrice that night. I read it, he said. Okay, Patrice said. She didn't ask him anything else. She just waited. She said she wasn't angry, Daniel said. She wasn't. I can tell you that. She talked about you all the time, Danny. Right up until the end. She was proud of you. He closed his eyes. I should have gone. When you texted me. I should have gone to the hospital. Maybe, Patrice said. And then, after a moment, she knew you were working through something. She understood it. She always understood too much, he said, and his voice broke a little on the last word. That's one way to put it, Patrice said gently. He asked about the arrangements. He asked if there was anything he could help with, anything that needed doing. Patrice gave him the details, a small service the following Saturday, just family, the way his mother had wanted it. Will you come? Patrice asked. Yes, Daniel said. He didn't hesitate. After he hung up, he sat for another long while. The letter was still on the table. The photograph. The glass of whiskey he'd never touched. He thought about what she'd written. The walls we build to keep the hurt out also keep other things out. He'd spent a long time building very careful walls. He'd told himself they were healthy, that he'd set a limit, that he'd chosen himself. And some of that was true. Some of it was real and necessary. But he also knew, sitting there in his kitchen, the city humming outside, his mother 3 days gone, that a wall was only as useful as what it was protecting. That at some point, if you weren't careful, you sealed yourself in rather than keeping anything out. He picked up the photograph one more time. He was going to keep it, he decided. On his desk, maybe, or somewhere he'd see it. Not as punishment. Not as a reminder of everything that went wrong. As a reminder that there had been a parking lot. That there had been sprinkles and laughing and a few seconds of simple happiness. That it hadn't been only the hard things. He went to the service on Saturday. It was small, Patrice, a few of his mother's friends from church, a neighbor named Dottie who had brought a foil-covered dish and cried quietly the entire time. Gerald wasn't there, they'd divorced years ago. Afterward, Patrice pressed a cardboard box into his hands. She wanted you to have some things, she said. No pressure to go through it now. Whenever you're ready. He took it home on the train, the box on his lap, and didn't open it for 2 weeks. When he finally did, there was the usual gentle archaeology of a life, a few books she'd loved, a rosary, some old photographs. And at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, a small ceramic dragon with a ridiculous expression on its face, clearly purchased at some tourist shop somewhere, clearly old. He turned it over in his hands. On the bottom, in black marker in his mother's handwriting, for when the butterflies get too scary. He didn't remember when she'd bought it. He didn't remember the nightmare, exactly, or the story she'd told. But she had remembered. She'd kept it all those years, waiting for the right moment to pass it on. He set the dragon on his desk, next to the photograph. He sat there for a while, not doing anything in particular. Just sitting with it, the grief, the regret, the complicated love that had no clean name. Just letting it all take up the space it needed. He thought about what she'd said. That forgiveness was his to keep or let go. He thought he might need more time for that. He suspected that was okay. But the walls, he decided, looking at the laughing 7-year-old and the small ridiculous dragon, the walls he could start working on. It wasn't the ending he would have written. But it was the one he had. And somewhere in it, underneath all the years and the silence and the things said too late, there was a parking lot on Route 9 and a mother who had remembered, and that was something. That was somewhere to start.